Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Man's Kitchen. It's me, your host, James the Food Man, and today we're going to answer some more questions from Reddit. All right, now that we're back from the intro, I want to remind everybody that if you like the channel, it's important you hit the subscribe button. If you like today's video, hit the like button, and you can always follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And I don't mention this every video, but if you want to support on Patreon, there's a link down below in the description. Now, with that out of the way, I read through some Ask Reddit, Ask Culinary section again this week, and I found 3 questions that seemed pretty interesting to me. The first one was the question was basically their premise was that they were getting tired with working in the restaurant and they have a family and they wanted a more family orientated job and they were wondering about health inspection. And they basically said, what do you guys think I need to do to become a health inspector? And she listed off her degree or whatever. It was like a Bachelor of Science in Culinary. So we don't even have degrees like that here in Canada. So that's, to me, that sounds weird. But that's beside the point. And basically, from a Canadian perspective here, you health inspectors, a lot of people think of them in the kitchens, going to restaurants and checking them out. But they also do all public health. So they do swimming pools. They notify STD outbreaks. Like if you test positive for an STD and you give a list of your partners, they call everyone down the list and get them tested. They do nail salons, barber shops, tattoo parlors. They do anything and everything that can involve public health. So for that reason, they need like a bachelor's of science, I think in chemistry or biology, something like that. And there's a specific um, program. There's only one university in Ontario that offers it, and it's a very specific program for public health. I think it might be a Bachelor of Science in Public Health, but it's basically all geared towards the public health type. So they can go into restaurants and check them out. They go into water treatment plants and check those out. It's all that falls under public health, and all of that is um, within their preview. Even one of the inspectors that was doing my restaurant for a bit, they go through a rotation so nobody gets comfortable with anybody. And he got pulled off of his rotation early because he had came from Goderich, which had experienced a big tornado. And when he came over here, because he was from Goderich, as part of his public health duty, they saddled him with a side job of coming up with a new disaster plan for the city in the event of a tornado type weather, to get water out to everybody, to get food, all that kind of stuff, because he had already experienced it in Goderich. So being a health inspector isn't just about walking in the restaurants and saying, you need to clean here, or you need to, well, why isn't your stuff wrapped up? Anybody that works in a restaurant, if you don't understand that they do all of that stuff, the restaurants are only maybe 10% of their actual job. So if you're interested in making the transition from, say, a kitchen position to a health inspector, it might not be what you're thinking of. I mean, sure, you're gonna have the nicer hours, maybe an increase in pay, be home on the weekends, but at the same time, you're not just going to restaurants all the time and picking at bad habits. There's a lot of other hard work there involved. Okay, so the second question was, this person was interested in going to culinary school, I believe, in the fall, and they want to know about getting a job over the summer as a dishwasher. And they were saying they basically have about 4 months till their program starts, and in 4 months, could they move up from dishwasher to a prep cook? and they in their question they were asking, like, should I do this? Obviously, I don't think I could walk into like a Michelin star place, stuff like that. Um, and any of you chefs that have started out as dishwashers, what were your experiences? So I started out as a dishwasher. I was 16 when I got my first job, and what it was a local Tex-Mex restaurant. A friend of mine was a dishwasher there, and they said to him, "Hey, do you want to start cooking?" And he said, "Sure." And then they said, "Okay, well, do you have any friends that want your dishwashing job, so we don't have to find somebody on our own?" And he goes, "Well, I can ask." And he asked me, and I got a job there. Now he does logistics for a factory that makes industrial sized gas tanks. For him, it was just a high school job. I worked at that restaurant almost till I finished college for culinary, and then I left there to move on to bigger and better things. But I did start out as a dishwasher, and if you're at a slower, I guess it depends on the size of the restaurant. I would say this was like a busy, medium sized restaurant. It sat just under 100 people. And on the weekend, we might flip the place 2 or 3 times on a Friday or Saturday night. But during the week, we might only half fill. So, with that said, um, I know I was hired near the end of the school year. So, when the summer came about, it was automatically, "Hey, do you want some afternoon hours?" So I'd come in at like 11 o'clock, and I would do prep for 2 or 3 hours, go home at 3, come back in at 5 for my regular dish shift. So that happened right off the bat, basically, because it was more of a medium-sized kitchen, and I would say that's more common in medium-sized kitchens, where basically everybody kind of does everything. And after about 4 or 5 months, I transitioned from dishwasher into being one of the cooks there. And the whole time I was a dishwasher there, I did some prep along the side. Um, I would also say that when I started there, this is a side note, minimum wage here was 6.85. I earned minimum wage until I became a cook, and then I got a raise to 7.10, and I haven't made minimum wage since then. So if you have talent, don't be afraid of working in restaurants because you won't be minimum wage for long, even if you start there. And that's just where everyone starts. That's just how it is. Even when you go to a new restaurant, they might say, "Well, would you make it the last place?" Well, we'll give you that for the first 2 or 3 months to see what you're really worth, and then we'll bump it up from there. That's usually how a raise with moving a job works, at least in this area. And I've had no problem with that's always worked well for me. But with that said, where was I going with this? Back up, back up. Dishwasher, yeah. So if you're only going to work there for about 4 months or so, you're probably not going to make it onto. You're definitely not going to make it onto the line, unless it's like a mom and pop kind of place. And if that's what you're looking for to make it as fast as you can, and you're going to go to school next year, then look for a local mom and pop kind of place where it's a family orientated staff. Because you get in there as a dishwasher, as long as you're not a jerk and you're nice to everybody and you treat everyone with respect and you treat everyone the way you want to be treated, and then you say, "Hey, I don't know if you're aware of this, but I'm going to culinary school in the fall. Is there any way I can get more hours here? Can I get on the line? Can I make salads? What can I do to help you that helps me?" And as long as you increase your value to them, they will increase what they're willing to show you. Okay, and the third question. Now, moving into our third question today, and this is going to be more about food this time. There was a question asked. They were making a lentil dish, and they said, "Can I re? I made the dish. I cooled the dish. It's in the fridge. I pulled it out. I nuked it. I ate some of it. Can I put it back in the fridge and then heat it up again?" And there were only a few answers to this, and some of them. One answer was, "Oh, I wouldn't do it more than 3 times." Another answer was, "I would check to see if it's moldy or smells funny," or and this kind of goes back more to public health, ties back to the first question of health inspectors, because it's at least here is the health inspectors, the public health unit that teaches the safe food handlers course, which you are required to have. um, so one person on staff, on shift, is required to have it right now. So if you have like 3 guys in the kitchen, one of them has to have the safe food handlers course. When you go to school, though, everybody, that's your first 2 days of school. Everybody gets that the first 2 days. But they expire every 5 years, so you have to get recertified every 5 years, and it's something that the public health offers for free. And one of the things they talk about is the danger zone, temperature abuse, and cooling and reheating, and cooling and reheating could be brought into the temperature abuse category if you're doing it too much. And the reason we keep hot foods hot and cold foods cold is because of bacteria growth. So I want to walk through this with you when it comes to being safe with your food. All right, so a refrigerator should be below 4 degrees Celsius, where you have rapid growth of bacteria. So if you have one bacteria, and that bacteria can double every 20 minutes. So you have one bacteria, and then 20 minutes later you have 2 bacteria. 20 minutes later you have 4 bacteria. 20 minutes later you have 8 bacteria in an hour. And as you can see, as the time goes on, you could have millions of bacteria. And now when you cook, and you bring stuff up past, when you cook stuff, and I'm going to be switching back and forth between Fahrenheit and Celsius, just because practically speaking at work we use Fahrenheit. On paper we use Celsius though. So you have to reheat to 160. You have to reheat stuff to whatever its original intended cooked temperature was. You have to reheat mixed products to 160. You have to reheat products where you don't know its reheat temperature to 160. And that kills everything, except for spores. Spores are heat proof. And what happens is as bacteria grow, every once in a while, they'll knock out a spore. So you could take something out of the fridge, and as long as the fridge is below 4 degrees, you have very slow bacteria growth. You still get it though. That's why stuff goes moldy in the fridge. And then so if you leave something, say, on the counter, then over time, the bacteria start growing and growing and growing, and then you might get a spore. And then you heat it, and you kill all that bacteria, but you still have that spore. And the other thing you don't kill is the toxins. So as those bacteria are growing and growing and eating, they're starting to eat away at the food, they're also pooping. And that bacteria poop is known as a toxin. So as they're growing and growing and growing and growing, and dividing and pooping, you get toxins and maybe a spore. The heat will kill all of the bacteria, but you still have these toxins and maybe a spore or two, and then that's when you get a foodborne illness. So when you're heating stuff up, you need to heat it up as efficiently and as fast as possible. And there are guidelines, and every jurisdiction may have different guidelines on what your required heating time might be. Like maybe you have half an hour to get it hot, which, depending what it is, like if say you're reheating some chili, you can put it in a convection steamer, set the thing for half an hour. It will be past the full boil by then. Like that's no problem. When you get into larger roasts, you just have to start cutting stuff up and heating them in batches. So if you're heating stuff up fast and you're minimizing its time in the danger zone, and you're cooling stuff off fast and minimizing its time in the danger zone, you're really minimizing the amount of bacteria that there are, the toxins, its potential for spores. But every time you heat and cool, you get a quality loss. So normally myself, we par cook our chicken, for example, at the restaurant, right? We par cook our grilled chicken, which means it all gets cooked to 70%, cooled, and then it's in containers marked par cooked chicken. When you need to heat it up, then you only have to finish cooking it the last 30%. It's a lot more efficient of a process when you're doing batch and your time constraints and stuff. So then we heat it up, and then it gets served. And then think about this. So it's been cooked, cooled, cooked, served, and now that customer might take it home in a takeout container. So that literally is 3 times. It was cooked, par cooked, cooled, then it was reheated and finished cooked for service, half eaten, cooled in a takeout box. Probably gets put in the takeout box, sits in their car while they drive home for half hour, 45 minutes, stuck in their fridge, and then they warm it up the next day. So that literally has been cooked and cooled 3 times. And how many times have you gone to a restaurant and taken your takeout home and done that? We all do it. We've all eaten stuff that's been cooked and cooled 3 times. But would you do it again? Would you take your restaurant leftover, eat half of it, and stick it back in the fridge? No, I'd probably throw mine out. And because I just know it's just not gonna taste good the next time. Even if it's nothing there to hurt me, it's gonna be soggy or dried out. Like it's just not a good idea. It's not a best practice. So I would try to minimize the amount of times I heat and cool things for my own personal safety. And the same thing goes for freezing things. When you get stuff below negative 18 Celsius, that's where we have to keep our freezers at the restaurant. That's the minimum. What happens is bacteria don't stop at that temperature. They just slow down to the point where it seems like they stop. And then when you thaw stuff, the bacteria wake up, they start going to work, right? And when they get above 4 degrees Celsius, that's when they really start their exponential multiplying. If you refreeze it, bacteria can start to develop an immunity to temperature on the low end. So now maybe those bacteria don't really go dormant till minus 20 or minus 25 degrees, but your freezer's set at minus 18. So then it's slow, but if you are leaving stuff in there for weeks at a time in the freezer, then you could get spoilage from thawing and cooling, or thawing and refreezing like that. That's why it's not a good idea, because the bacteria develop a resistance. I mean, you can take something out of the freezer that's raw, you can cook it, you've killed the bacteria. Bacteria are airborne though, so now you're gonna get new bacteria on it from just handling it. You could freeze that cooked product because those bacteria haven't been frozen and thawed again. But freezing doesn't kill bacteria. All right, guys, that has been this week's rundown on some questions from Reddit. I hope you liked this video. Remember, if you did, hit the subscribe button. If you like the channel, hit the like button. And you can always follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And until next time in the man's kitchen, stay hungry, my friends.